Welcome to Listen to My Podcast. I am your host, Davidito, and we back like we never left. Since we back, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Today's guest is coming to us from New York, okay? I would say he is probably one of the pioneers of the new wave. He's been doing it for a minute, alright? We'll talk a little bit about him becoming a new father, his artist journey, how he linked up with some of the biggest names in the industry from shoe customizing, his background in tattooing. Today's guest is Sierato himself. Sierato, welcome to the podcast.
Listen, you want custom shoes, that's gonna take some bucks. Whatever you have for the price, go ahead and raise them up. Better get your spot now for it's taken up. When it's all said and done, my guy, lace them up. Come on, lace them up.
What's going on?
Yeah, man. Excited to have you on. So, got a lot of different things I want to kind of talk with you about and see what your perspective are on them. But before we get into that, first, what kind of got you into art?
I'd say probably a combination of rap videos and anime. Probably be the two. Probably the biggest inspirations, for me when I was younger. Just kind of seeing that style of getting into all the fashion and the look and the mystique. I say that in the NBA, I would guess. People like Allen Iverson, things like that, got me into the interest in tattoos, which got me into the interest in drawing, and of course the anime was the first thing I had the interest in actually trying to draw myself alongside that kind of tattoo stuff. So just that was like my major influences going up, and I just kind of kept that going almost all the way through my whole career so far.
Yeah. So that was one of my questions. So like looking at your style and stuff, one, I would say it's very unique to you. I feel like it has like this galaxy lightning like type vibe to it, but there's also a lot of anime incorporated in it. What got you into anime?
Just stuff, it's just the things we watch, me and my brothers, this is kind of what we threw on when we were younger. Watching Toonami and, old school stuff like that, that would just kind of play and run. You kind of catch what you catch, so I actually never really watched like whole, series, collections of shows. I kind of just watched episodes in between until I got a little bit older, things like Netflix and streaming and, YouTube and things like that. And then now I've kind of caught up on everything, watched everything that I wanted to watch all the new stuff. And then, I just kind of keep my eye on everything that comes out now and try to find, the new hot stuff.
There you go. Okay. Interesting. So you mentioned tattoo. Are you a tattoo artist?
I am, yes.
Okay.
So I did my original. Go ahead. I was gonna say I did my original apprenticeship in 2010. So I've been basically tattooing. I tattooed in a couple of shops before I got on YouTube, and then when I got on YouTube, I basically just did YouTube. Or YouTube, I guess, and Instagram, my regular business, selling shoes and art and whatnot. I kind of did that long before I actually got popping on any of the platforms at all. So that's kind of always been the base of the content. So the content has almost always been kind of whatever order I had in or whatever thing I was working on or whatever project. So it was all, pretty natural the whole time through, and keeping that anime influence going through was, pretty easy as, there's not a whole lot of people that used to do this kind of stuff. It's kind of blown up pretty hard over the last couple of years. I'd like to think a lot, due to the stuff I do and, a couple other names I can think of, but it's always been my thing.
Yeah. So what would you say was your style, your specialty when it comes to tattooing?
My style, my particular specialty is neo-traditional. Is usually what I prefer to do. If not that, black and gray, realism. There's other things I like to do as well. I don't do too much like full color stuff, but I can. I do know how. I've been a jack of all trades. The first couple of shops I was in, you kind of had to take whatever came through the door, and if you weren't prepared to do what they were asking for, you wasn't gonna make no money that day. So you learn how to do pretty much everything pretty quickly. So I take whatever walks in the door, but that's what I specialize in. That's what I prefer.
Yeah. So are you still doing tattooing as well?
Yeah. So I have a private studio downtown in Baltimore. So anybody that wants to get tattooed, come on down.
Yeah, exactly. So what got you into from that to painting shoes?
So actually, I guess I didn't start off with the painting part. So I actually never really wanted to be a painter or be an artist, really, other than like tattooing. I always tell people it's kind of funny. I went to in art high school and middle school, and ended up not taking art. I took art in middle school, but I didn't take it in high school, and then I was planning to take it in college. I went to UMBC for a year, and just decided I was going to do prereqs the first year and then figure out what I was going to do. And then I ended up thinking, hey, I'd rather just go tattoo and I can, be a professional today. So, I started tattooing people in my dorm room. Anybody that wanted to come by and get worked on, that's what we used to do. God rest, whatever those people must have got. But anybody that sees this, that was one of those people, come on down to the shop. I'll fix you up. I'll get you something new. But yeah, anyways, I started tattooing there. That got me wanting to kind of get out of the school zone, get into the workforce, start tattooing professionally. So I went around, did my apprenticeships, got into that, and then finally found a shop that I was working in. And in my downtime there, I decided, hey, I got to practice. I got to find something to fill the time while I'm sitting here waiting for walk-ins to come in, So I decided to start taking Sharpies and start doing canvas sneakers like Converses, Chuck Taylors, Vans, skate highs, 106s, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I started with the Sharpies, started just basically doing tattoos on shoes, which is what my original brand was tattoos for shoes. So that's what it started as, and then just kind of evolved into anything and anything, anything and everything.
Wow. Interesting. I never would have known that. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been following you, watching you for a while, you and a couple other people, but I've always seen, like I mentioned earlier, like that like galaxy, like lightning thing that you have like to a T now, and then like a lot of anime stuff. So I would have never known that it started from, you using Sharpie and basically just tattooing shoes. So, but
Yeah.
jumping from material. So what was that experience, right? Because you're jumping from basically like a canvas material to now you're dealing with leather. What was that experience for you?
It's always about, kind of learning something new. It's a challenge for sure, when I first started it. But luckily back then, I was pretty early to the scene. I don't want to say too early because obviously there's people that have been doing, painting shoes or, whatever. And for a long time, since like the 80s, 70s or whatever. But I guess the new age version of it, I've been relatively new to kind of how that's kind of progressed and become much, much more popular, much more well known, better equipment, better, supplies, better companies supplying this stuff for us now. So when I first started it, I did it totally different than how I do it now. But I've just kind of progressed slowly by slowly, learning how to paint with, acrylics first, learning how to paint by, with a brush first. And then getting into airbrushing, learning how to airbrush, tight detail, and kind of progressing it further and further and further as far as I can go, basically.
Yeah. So one of my sayings is creating is problem solving, right? I feel like whenever you're making something, you're gonna run into an obstacle. And you got to figure out how to get through it. What would you say has been one of the biggest things or problems you ran into while creating something, and how did you fix it?
That's a good question. Dang, when it comes to this business, there's so many things that you'll run into that you'll have problems with. So many pivots along the way there that it's hard to kind of pick one particular instance to pull out. But there's always something going to pop up. If it ain't something, this thing is going to be something else. So I don't really have too many issues in the actual process of painting shoes. Generally, that much, I don't think I've ever had somebody wanting to send something back or the design be wrong or, whatever. So, really don't really have any issues as far as that goes. But sometimes, just dealing with the process of that actual business aspect of doing this kind of thing, what card processors you're going to use. Do people, are they going to actually read the terms and conditions? Are they going to read the wait times? Are they going to expect their shoe tomorrow just because they didn't bother to read and they paid you $1,000 up front and they're wondering where their money is, and now you've got 5 of these guys blowing your phone up over here while you got 100 other orders over here that you're trying to get through and manage and deal with, and stuff like that nobody can tell you about before you get into it. That's the kind of problems you're going to end up with. But it's always something you got to learn and new challenges to overcome, I guess.
Yeah. So in that, what would you say is the biggest business tip that you've learned, right? There's so many times that from a creative standpoint, you're like, I just want to create. I don't want to do all the other stuff, but you still got to have that relationship with the customer and building that. So what would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned in that vein?
Biggest lesson I've learned would be prioritize your time for what you're meant to be doing. Be a star in your role, as like they say, right? Like, know what you're good at and then hire a professional to do the rest of it. Like that's what is the best tip I can give you. Is as soon as you get enough to start adding people to the team, taking stuff off your personal load and sharing that load, that's the best thing you can do for expedience's sake. And just make sure that trust with verification. That's one thing I can tell you is don't blindly trust any person to do any task or duty. Make sure you have your systems and procedures set up. Make sure you know what they're doing, when they're doing it, and that they're doing what they're supposed to. And then trust them to do their job. Hire the right guys, and if you don't, get somebody else. But that's the best thing I can tell you, so that you can stay doing what it is that you should be doing. Because every second I spend being a accountant and being a tax professional and being my own shipping guy and my own shoe runner and all that stuff is all the time I'm not spending sitting here painting, doing the stuff that actually pays bills. So that's what I'd say.
Yeah. So are you recording all your videos and stuff, or do you got somebody who's doing it for you?
It's just a mix. It depends upon the day and the project and the time. If it's low key, just a traditional regular YouTube video, then yeah, I've got all the capabilities of doing that by myself. So usually I'll handle that myself in the studio. But if not, if we're working with a celebrity or we're going somewhere, or we're doing something else, I've got the shooters that I call in.
There you go. So that was one of the questions I was going to ask. I see that you've worked with a lot of celebrities, NBA players, done stuff for Shaq himself, like all different kinds of things. One, how did you get in that space, and then what has been that experience?
So I got kind of lucky, I guess, with some of that stuff. Just kind of being in the right place, right time. I got to blow up on a couple of different platforms right when it was kind of the right time to do that. So I've just managed to organically get connected with a lot of different people, either through videos, like, seeing my stuff on YouTube, or, some of my stuff was pretty syndicated for a while there, where, people were watching the stuff on airplanes, and, in the metro, on the wall in the subway station, weird stuff like that, right? So, or in Walmart break rooms, I've heard that one before. So like, when you've got that kind of exposure going for a while, you tend to, people talk, they share it around, and a lot of times I'll just have somebody that knows somebody that says, hey, you should call this guy or do that thing. Or it'll be direct through Instagram. I'll post something, it'll do what it does, and, I'll send a DM out or whatever, and they'll respond. So a lot of times it's, especially when I got in the beginning, the biggest tip I can give people is find the circle of the sphere of influence around whoever you're trying to get to. If you can find a cousin or an aunt or a sister or whoever, they're going to be able to get you to where you're going a lot faster than screaming into the void on an Instagram DM or whatever, or in somebody's comments over and over. They get that all day long. But if they got their sister saying, hey, somebody offered me a pair of shoes and you, that's how you get there.
Yeah. So with that, how many over the years would you say, how many shoes have you just gifted out trying to get your brand out?
A good portion. I'd say it's definitely hit or miss. You're gambling for sure. You gotta pay to play. A lot of people don't want to do that. So you're gonna get burned for sure every now and again. But I'd say I probably hit on 60% of the shoes I've given out for free. A lot of stuff, I'd be a lot bigger name if I'd got the other 40%. But some people you wouldn't believe are on that list there, just taking shit for free and not doing nothing. But I'd say total, maybe a couple hundred pairs have gone out for free, something like that. So definitely got to spread it around.
Yeah, for sure. That's the one thing that I'm like, okay, I need to do that, but I'd be hesitant because I'm like, I don't want to get burned.
Yeah, well,
but
you got to look at it like this, right? Yeah, it's part of the game, right? So you got to look at it like this, and this is how I think about it. Is I'm basing most of my stuff on content nowadays, right? Like I started off in the Etsy lane and the actually having, I had shoes lined up down the wall, spraying them all red, all rainbow Huaraches, and selling a million of these things on Etsy, right? Like that's one way you could go. But then I realized that that's all I'm ever going to do, right? So if I want to transition into artwork and I want to actually sell pieces and be known as an artist that people seek out for this kind of thing, right? I found that a lot of the times, I may be giving out a lot of, money per se in shoes and free gifts to millionaires and whoever's that could buy their own things. But what you're doing is you're getting yourself right next to these people. And what I make my money from and where I make my money back from these shoes pretty much every time, 100 times over, is every single time I'm with them, I'm getting them to sign something. I'm getting them to take pictures. I'm using that for Instagram. I'm getting them to, be in videos. I'm getting them to be on YouTube videos. You do a YouTube video with XYZ or with LaMelo Ball or whoever, you might do 1 million views on, YouTube, and you might get paid $2,000 just for that. And then all of a sudden that shoes that you just gave out don't really seem like much, It seems like, oh, he did me the favor almost. So it's one of those things that you just gotta, weigh those, cost, benefits, and is it worth it? Is it not? And can you afford to give it out? That's the other thing. Don't do it if you can't afford it, but if you can, it's a good way to get rolling.
Yeah, risk versus reward for sure.
Shoot. Don't start with the stars. Don't start hitting up Chris Paul and everybody else on the first day. Start with Instagram models. Start with influencers, guys that sit at their home and make content all day long, but they got a million followers on Instagram. Those are the people that are like, oh, you want to send me something for free? Bet. I'll post it. Yeah. I'll put it up. I'll do this. You start working with those guys, you'll get to the bigger names. They'll see stuff and it'll start trickling downward.
Yeah. Good advice. Speaking of advice, what would be one tip that you would give somebody who said, "Hey, I like your stuff. I wanna get into this field, this area." What was one piece of advice you would give them?
I'd say two things. I'd say you got to be original in some kind of form or fashion. So you've got to have a thing that's you. That when they see that shoe, they know, oh, that's one of his. That's a Sierato. That's easy to find. Like you said, you see the Galaxy, you see the whatever, you see the drip or whatever it is. You almost instantly know, oh, that's that guy. Right. So, and that's without me having to do a whole lot. Right. Like those are like my standard designs. That's not the stuff I spend, people spend the big money on. That's the stuff that everybody and their mom has seen one. And then when they want, when they get to wanting to spend some money, that they get one of those. That's like a starter piece. And then they get into, oh, now I want to do one with my mom's name and my cousin's name. And I want to do one with a portrait on it. And I want to do one with where I was born and put this quote on there and do this. And you start running the numbers up. Right. But you got to be known for something in the first place. You got to have your thing that lets you stand out from the other people that do this now. Like I said, this has become much more syndicated of a thing with TikTok and everything else blowing up, that like almost all the content you see about this now is vertical short form content, like minute-long videos, and people just trying to get that quick view and go about their day. Almost nobody makes actual content based on this kind of stuff anymore. And it's because it's a dying art almost. It's not a lot of guys doing this to this level that have their own almost identity, I would say, where you just know that that's one of his shoes, that's one of his shoes, the heavy hitters, or I like to call them. So if you can figure out what your main stick is going to be, but then also don't reinvent the wheel when you're starting out, find a couple of designs that are similar styles to other people that are moving stuff and grooving, and find your variation of that. What's your version of that? Can you make a green version? Can you invert the colors? Can you, add some drip to it? Can you do something? Make it yours. Don't copy, but make it yours. But, get used to that trial and error of, can I recreate what this guy did, and then now can I do it better? That's the way you should go.
Yeah. One of the things I was going to ask you is, what's the thing that keeps you motivated moving forward? But I would imagine with now being a new father, you have a new piece of motivation as well. So what's that experience been like?
Yeah, it's definitely been different last years. I mean, before that I was getting married, and I had a whole bunch of other stuff going on personally. Yeah. So a lot of transition, a lot of different pieces moving, a lot of different people coming and going in and out of the business, and it's definitely opened the eyes to do I want to do this particular thing forever? Do I want to do something else? How do I want to continue doing what I want to do? I would say this. I will never not be taking shoe orders. I will never not be a sneaker painter. That's what I do. That's what I'm known for. But I like to do other things too. So I might want to be on gaming channel. I want to start a podcast like we have. I might want to run another business or open another couple businesses or do something else, right? Or help other people with their content. I might start running media services or whatever, and things like that. Just start doing stuff there. I don't have to be so intrinsically involved, so that I can let those other things grow on their own, bring those residuals in, and I can then get back to focusing on what I want to focus on, going forwards. But got to prioritize, the kids and all that good stuff, and make sure that you got your lines of income lined up, and you're figuring out what you got to figure out. So, nothing lasts forever. Nothing's going to be forever. And, knowing when it's your time to slide to something else is also going to be important. So I'll always do what I do, but, I may not be my all in everything. It may not be every day, but, it'll always be new content and new stuff coming out that's in the form that I feel like should always be somebody should be doing, what I feel like I do and what a couple other guys do. If we're the only ones, somebody got to do it. So so I'll always be people, because every video I put up, everything I do, whether it gets 100,000 views or it gets 1,000,000 views, it gets whatever, there's always saying, it's always people in there saying, hey, thank you for putting this up. Thank you for doing this. I've been watching you since I was 10, or I've been doing, you'd be shocked at, the people that say I'm some kind of like person they look up to or thing that they look at or whatever, and I'm just like, hey, I just sit here and paint shoes, bro, but that's awesome that, you watch these videos, you've been watching for this long, or, how old I felt when I had an NBA player last year tell me that he used to watch my videos when he was a kid. I was like, what?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I was like, how old are you, first off? Like, you're in the NBA? I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Getting
that's
old.
Crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, I know. I had I coached football. I had a kid trying to guess my age the other day. I was like, man, you're making me feel super old out here. Stop. Like, just give it up. So how has, from a personal like standpoint, I guess, emotional standpoint or whatever, as being a new father changed you? I know when I had my first one, I felt like something clicked inside of me to where it was like, okay, I gotta do something different now. I need to, push in this lane a little bit more. I have to think about things I never even was concerned about before, right? What has been that thing for you?
Like I said, just really just the stability of everything, just making sure that, I used to do a lot of non-traditional gambling, is what I like to call it, gambling on myself, I like to call it. So, you can't take some of these shots, you can't take some of these swings, I can't fly me and the boys out to Vegas for 2 weeks to see who we run into and what we can shoot and what we can, you can't do that kind of shit. You got to plan better, you got to plan smarter and work smarter, not harder. So you got time to hang with the kids, you got time to be with the wife, and you got time to do stuff outside of work. When I was coming up doing a lot of this stuff, it was just me dolo. I used to wake up, roll out of bed whenever I felt like it, and get to it. And whenever I decided I was done, I was done. That's how the flow worked. If I was in there for 18 hours or 3 days straight, or 20 minutes, it was all up to me and whenever I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do, and that's not necessarily the case anymore. So you got to work all that stuff in and figure out what's going to be the new more important thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned you started a podcast. First, what's the podcast, and then what it's about?
So me and a couple of my boys started a podcast. It's called Downloadable Culture, or DLC. And basically what it is, it's a podcast, and I like to call it's more of a community is what we want to kind of create, of basically based around and centered around creators. So a creator of any kind. So if you're a creator, if you paint at home, you're an art creator. If you are a carpentry guy and you build magnificent buildings or whatever it is that you do, you're a creator of some site too. Or if you're just a content consumer, we want to talk to you guys too of, well, what is this content that you see? How does it affect you? What do you like? What do you not like? Do streamers piss you off? Do they not piss you off? Do you consume that kind of content? Do you not? What's your daily intake of, what do you watch? Where do you watch it? What do you like? What's important to you? And then for the guys that we get on that are going to be our creators, we're going to talk to them about, what it is that you do, how you got into it, what the pitfalls are, what you've dealt with, your greatest successes, pitfalls, all that stuff on what it takes to be master barber, or to be a master tattoo artist, or to be whatever it is that these people are. So any kind of artist, any type of creator, if you do it with your hands, if you're an artisan is what we like to call it, if you make something with your hands, or you create something, we want to talk to you. So anybody could be on, anybody could be featured. Sometimes it'll be a big name, whoever, and sometimes it'll be just somebody that you got to learn about. And that's the idea, is we want to kind of create a platform that we can collectively get more and more talent involved in, so that you have the contact that you want to reach. So we've got 7 comedians in here and you're one too. Now you got 7 other guys that you can hit in the Discord and be like, hey, can y'all get in the video, or can y'all do this, or hey, can we do this? Or we're a sneaker artist, and and I'm a sneaker artist, and you got a question, then hit the Discord, talk to us. You got 8 other sneaker artists in here that can answer the question. So that's when we want to create that pool, and then bring people from that talent pool onto the podcast to showcase your stuff and to a new audience, hopefully.
Yeah.
And if you're well known, you're well known, and hopefully that trickle works in reverse, that you bring new eyes to the people that aren't well known. That's the idea.
Yeah. Dope. I like it. So you've been making shoes for a long time. So this question may be a little difficult for you. What would you say is your top 5 custom shoes that you've created. This episode of the Lace My Podcast is brought to you by Davidito Designs. Davidito Designs is my website. It's where you can go and cop some merch. You can also put in a request for some custom shoes, and we can bring whatever idea that you may have in your mind to life on a pair of custom shoes. Back to the podcast.
Oh shit. I don't even know. I feel like I like everyone better than the last one. You know, that's the idea anyway. But I said it's more like iconic ones to me for like either what they did for me or, you know, what they were or what shoe it was. You know, I did a couple pairs of Air Mags back in the day. You know, those were pretty momentous order when they came through, and, you know, pretty high level videos that came out of them. I did a pair of shoes. I did a pair of Jordan 5s for Tom Holland for Spider-Man. You know, I got to go to Comic-Con and talk to Comic-Con and then go do a personal presentation with Tom and film with him and do the whole nine. So, like, you know, shit like that I never thought I'd be able to do. I did shoes for D-Wade's Hall of Fame game. Got to go there and sit in the Miami Heat Stadium and in his personal section with his, you know, with Pops and the fam, and, you know, go to the crib and, you know, get filmed for 2K with him and do the whole nine. So, like, you know, shit like that, you know, I never thought I'd be able to do just off of painting shoes. You know, you'd be amazed at where I can get to, what you can do. You know, paint a pair of shoes. I got to, you know, go stand next to LeBron while he's warming up on the court, you know. Crazy shit I never thought I'd be able to do. Yeah, man, I'm top 5 shoes though. That's difficult. Probably. Damn, what's some other ones that are iconic? The Jaws, couple of Ja Morant joints that, you know, every time you watch a highlight tape, a Ja, you know, getting one of the. I got a couple pairs on a couple of his mixtapes now that are gonna stand the test of time forever. You know, that's the type of shit that, you know, that's what I do it for. You know, that's the pinnacle is you know, making the highlight reels for, you know, and knowing that, hey, that, you know, that was me over there. I did that. I was a part of that. So little shit like that, you know. Shoes for, you know, Zion at Duke, you know, when he's, you know, the biggest thing on the planet, and, you know, right after he pops his foot through, you know, I'm right there giving him the next one. So, you know, and then everybody and their mama sharing that shit, you know. I never see any more eyeballs on, you know, something I did. So it's just stuff like that. I've got individual moments more so than, you know, shoes themselves, you know. Or like, we were just talking about earlier, you know, popping up on Shaq, you know, for an episode, you know, getting to go to the crib and getting a lecture from Shaq for an hour and a half in his kitchen about why I'm not rich yet, and yada yada yada, you know, little shit like that I never thought I'd be doing. So, yeah, you know, talking about he wants to prank on, you know, Chuck and Ernie, you know, I want you to come on the show on halftime. We're gonna make shoes, and you're not gonna make one for Chuck though. He's not gonna get one. You know, we're gonna play. It's gonna be a funny joke, and you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, you know. So, like, you know, shit like that you never thought people would be talking to you about. So, yeah, you know, crazy shit.
So, you know, people say if you want to grow or be successful, you know, you got to be around 4 to 5 people that are, right. Being in those spaces, what would you say is one of the biggest nuggets that you've been or have received from someone who has been successful and who has made it?
Biggest nugget. Probably I had a personal meeting with I don't know if you ever heard of him or not, but his name's Gary V. Had a personal meet with him about, you know, us doing some business stuff, and for best advice I ever got was a simple one from him of, you think that you don't have enough time, but you do. Like, I'm only 30 or whatever, and you figuring stuff out, you got 30 more years to figure it out. Like, when you think about it like that, like, everybody wants to do everything today. They want to be popping today. They want to be a superstar today. But everything seems like it's happening too slow, or nothing's happening how you want it, or whatever. But, like, when you think about it, you got how many more years you're going to be living to just keep working at what you want to do. And eventually, shit will click in. You put them 10,000 hours in, you'll get a return. So really, that's one of the best pieces of advice I got, is just, you know, keep pushing, and don't worry about if every little piece don't go viral. Don't worry about that, you know. Put another one up.
Yeah, definitely. Give you one person, doesn't matter who it is, dead or alive, that you would like to work with, whether it's make a pair of shoes with, collaborate with. Who is it, and what would be the project?
One person, dead or alive. Damn, dead or alive part is something. That opens the field up a little too far. Too many
Yeah.
options. Too many options. Damn. If we're going dead or alive, I'm gonna go Tupac. Bring Tupac
Okay.
back. I want right out of jail before he hits that California love. Let's lace it up. Let's put something on. I want to get something in that vid. I want to do something like that. You know, something along those lines. I got another couple of names I could probably put on that list for sure. But
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to think other people that I haven't gotten to yet that I would want to. I'm trying to think. All right, look, who would be a live person I haven't gotten to that I want to get to? Damn. See, I had a couple people on the list and then they started fucking up. Now they're not on the list no more. That's a tough one. Maybe the weekend.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
That's a good one. I can pick that one. Yeah,
Okay.
the weekend.
Okay.
Do something with the weekend. That'd
Why
be crazy.
Tupac? What's the draw to Tupac?
I just look at iconic figures, you know, from when I was younger that, you know, I wasn't able to be a part of, like, in the way that I've, you know, kind of gotten to meet a lot of my, you know, heroes now. You know, that have been one on the creative angle of, you know, people from, you know, his experience in Baltimore and, you know, kind of coming from this area and doing what he did. You know, that'd be a crazy get for me for sure. It would be something like that. Other one would have been Kobe. Kobe would have been another one. I got close, but unfortunately he passed basically right when I had a couple months before I had plans to actually do our project together. So never got a chance to do that one. Never got a chance to meet him fully and do the whole nine. So that was disappointing for multiple reasons. But yeah, that'd be one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be my two heavy top ones I can think of right now. That maybe Allen Iverson too. Add him on the list. Still living.
Yeah.
I'm still figure that one out. He's in
Yeah.
Philly. He not far.
Hey, I mean, you got the opportunity to get in touch with Shaq. You know, they both president and vice president of
I know. I'm gonna have to call. I'm gonna have to
Real
call
life
the
right
peoples now. I'm gonna have to
yeah,
call the homies.
so, I mean,
See what they could do.
yeah, what they say, six separation or whatever it's called.
Uh huh.
So, what would you say is your favorite shoe to customize, and then what's also been the most difficult one, and why?
Favorite shoe to customize. I don't know that I have a 100% like favorite shoe. Like if I had to just pick something, I would paint that every. I take it back. All right. Damn, I don't have one sitting here. I thought I had one over here, but Westbrook Why Not 01s would be my favorite pick for just like the perfect canvas of a sneaker that you want to paint. Like I did some good intricate designs on some Westbrooks with that smooth paneling all the way around and just the profile, the way it looks. But if I didn't pick those, I'd probably have to go with the 90s. Just the most iconic shoe for me that like damn near changed my life. This shoe. Honestly, I never bought a pair a day in my life before I started selling them, and changed my fucking life. You'd be surprised how many people wear these shits all around the world, man. Like, I just sold to 50, 60 different countries, bro. All types of Air Maxes.
Wow.
All types of Air Maxes. Air Max Day is for real. But, yeah, those probably be the top two worst ones I ever painted. I don't even know if there's a worse one. There's just some shoes that just aren't paintable based upon, you know, how they're made up, you know. Most, like, hated project I ever had to do on a shoe, probably, I did a whole entire project for Call of Duty. For this, I think it was for this CDL tournament. It was for either CDL tournament, it was for Warzone, something like that. And basically, it was a big ass project where they sent me like 30 pairs of the same shoe, right? And it was a pair of Jordan 9 like turf boots, like some shit I never even seen. I never seen Jordan 9s with like spike bottoms or whatever the fuck. So I was just like, all right, cool. But then they tell me, oh, I'm sorry, it was for Top Gun, not Call of Duty, for Top Gun. And they're just like, hey, these are going to go to Jason Tatum, Meg Thee Stallion, Bad Bunny, and just naming shit off, J Balvin, David Dobrik, and all. I'm just like, all right, well, cool, but also we want you to make sure that these don't look like Jordans. Like all the logos got to come off. Everything. How you want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, get the grinder. Start grinding logos off. Start, then make it look like something. So fucking Meg Thee Stallion thinks this doesn't look like some dumb shit. So yeah, it's stuff like that is the what they don't tell you about.
Yeah,
That's the hard stuff. It's not hard when I get to sit here and just think of something to do. That's what I do, for fun. It's the ones where they're paying, when you got 30 grand on the line, and you got 2 weeks and a board of guys and a guy in France giving you the okay if this is all right or not. That's those are the ones.
Yeah. So with that, yes, there's a lot of problem solving, but there's also, I think people have a lot of fear, whether it's fear of success or fear of what's on the other side of whatever this thing is. Do you have to deal with that, and then how do you get past it?
No, I never really had a fear of like success. I would say definitely never had that. More so, almost like I almost expected to be like successful at this, right? Like I felt like I had enough acumen or knowledge of like artwork and my personal skill and what was actually on the market currently that I knew that if I did this type of way and I just kept at it, my stuff is better than the rest of these people's stuff, and it's gonna click. So like it's really just how do I get eyeballs on this as fast as possible so that everybody can see what I already know. That's kind of how I approached. So when success and stuff started coming in, that's what I expected, and how fast stuff went or how slowly it went. I was more pissed off that stuff took as long as it took. I felt like I had to do a whole lot to get, not very far. So, lots of pitfalls, lots of ups and back downs and the whole roller coaster effect of things, and lots of times that I thought, okay, this is the one. I just did the big old handoff. I just did this. I did that with this person. I'm on the tour bus with the Migos right after Versace. I'm giving them all shoes at, the last taping at 106 at Park. I'm with Tiana Taylor, and we're doing it. And, this is the one. And stuff happens however it happens, and that's turns out not to be the one. It turns out people never see this shit or whatever. And I just took 3 days to do all this stuff and give them all this stuff for free and drive all the way down to New York, and that's the stuff people never gonna know about, never gonna see and wonder, that's 3, 4, or 5 days and resources that I've now burned on something that, didn't work. So it's a lot of stuff that, happens, but, I always just next thing up, pivot. What are you gonna do? Bills got to get paid. You got to put stuff up. You got to put numbers on the board. So what you gonna do? So always figuring out, what that next move is and just keeping it pushing and expect to be good at what you do if you put the work in and you put the hours in and you did your best. I'd never be afraid of success, but also if shit doesn't work, I also know I did my best. I threw everything at the wall and I ran my race like a horse. I don't pay attention to what nobody else does. I don't copy nobody. I do my own thing, and that's best I could do. So if it don't work, I can't be mad about it. It just didn't work. Do something else.
Yeah. So what would you say to the person who's like, yeah, I want to do it, but I could just go get this job and have this security and know that I'm going to have a constant check, every 2 weeks or every month or whatever the case may be, or every week, that you're going to have this constant check that's coming in, versus I'm betting on myself and we're going to see how the chips fall.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something I said that just got to be in you. Like that's almost just that entrepreneurial spirit. Like if you're sitting here worried about if you're going to be able to pay the bills or if you're going to be able to do this or that, like you might have already lost the battle. Like sometimes you can't worry about that kind of shit. You just got to go out there and do it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you tried. Like that's just how you got to look at it. Because if you're sitting here worried about every little dollar you're going to spend or every dime, and I mean, again, don't be stupid, don't be dumb, and don't just throw your shit out for no reason. But do the best you can. And if you feel like this is the best preparation you can do to do whatever you're trying to do, do it. Don't wait and don't second guess, triple guess, quadruple guess, don't ask 20 different people for 20 different opinions. Like come up with what you think is a good idea and then do it. And if it doesn't work, try something else. What didn't work, what worked, try something else. And that's the best thing I can, tell people is that, you're going to lose some of these, like I said, at 60% at best. Honestly, if I just really did the numbers, it might be worse than that. I don't know. But the ones that you hit on, those, some of those might be Zion, some of those might be Ja, some of those might be, whoever, and that might be all you need to now you got a career. So like, it's one of those things that Yeah, I didn't, hit on everything that I tried to do, and I know that there was a lot of stuff that would have had me in a whole different, stratosphere, but the ones that I did hit on, thank God for that, so like
Yeah.
kept everything rolling, and got us to where we got to. And like I said, I done stuff I never thought I was gonna do, so like can't really be mad. So
Yeah. Yeah. So in the age of social media and content, do you have a schedule for how often you post and stuff? What does that look like for you, and how much of your strategy is actually going into that?
I don't really. So, ironically, I run social media accounts for other people, and I have all of that. But for my own personal stuff now, I like to spend more of my time focusing on other stuff. So I just do what I do to, let people know, I'm alive. I'm still out here doing what I do, and people still calling me. Don't you'll still see stuff. So, but I don't spend all my time focusing on it. I don't like plan out every single post that's going up. I don't worry about if I don't have something to post today or whatever. Like I'm not worried about it. Like I feel like a lot of that climate has changed pretty significantly based on some of these other social media platforms that have gotten popping, and how content has kind of shifted, just the general way that content is presented, how it's made, and how it's done, and the return you get for it, the way that social media is actually processed. I feel like a lot of that stuff just really isn't conducive to what we do personally. So, I put max effort in when I'm doing it, and then when I'm not doing it, I don't worry about it. I just go about my day and do something, do whatever I'm doing that day. So, would I suggest that for everybody? No, but like I said, I've lived, a decade plus of having to worry about every single day on what I'm posting and what I'm not posting and where I'm going and what's going to be happening next. And, I'm just, not finna be doing that for too much, for my own stuff. I'm not finna be doing that on top of everybody else's and trying to start other businesses and do other things. They all got social media accounts. They all got stuff you got to worry about. So like, how much can you really do? And then, when I feel like getting back into it heavy, I'll hire somebody and I'll let them go to town on it, and, we'll make content. But for now, I just do what I like to do, what I got time to do. And if I got stuff to post, I'm gonna post it. If it's worth sharing, I'm gonna share it. But I go more quality over quantity at this point.
Gotcha. What's something that you're working on now that you're excited about?
I'm looking to get a new series going for the YouTube channel here. We're gonna change it up a bit. I want to do some larger, more elaborate paintings than I can do on a shoe. So I'm looking to get into start doing like a canvas series as well on more like unique canvases. So it won't actually be canvases all the time. Sometimes it'll be an old door, or sometimes it'll be a whatever interesting shit I can find at the thrift store or whatever. Or we're gonna paint a whole fridge today, or we're gonna whatever, some shit like that. So I figure start doing stuff like that, and then start adding my kind of type of design to these things, stuff that people haven't seen before, and give me something new to do. I get a little bored of doing the same Space Jam theme over and over, or give me Galaxy this for the 40th time, 48 millionth time or whatever. So, just getting into new stuff. That's really all it is. But I'll, keep doing my standard stuff, for the people that want it and the people that ask me for it. I'm grateful for every person that, wants to put an order in and sends me a DM, hits the text the hotline, or, sends a, hits the website up or whatever, however you want to get in contact. But yeah, like I like doing the stuff that people ask me to do. I like when people ask me to do interesting stuff that hasn't been done, when they come with a really like fleshed out idea, like, oh, I just did a pair of shoes that's gonna be in one of my videos coming up. Like I want a Korean themed pair of Kobe 5s, right? Like with the Korean dragon on it, and with the architecture and with all this other shit, right? And I'm just like, oh, I ain't never did nothing like that. Like, let's do it. So stuff like that. Getting into new stuff that isn't all the same, basic, paint Goku and then go about your day. So, I like doing all that stuff too, and I'm going to keep that going in new fashions. I got an idea for that, for the anime stuff that's going to be new that nobody is doing yet. So stay tuned for that. I don't want to give too much away on it right now, but it will be a unique idea that I haven't seen anybody do yet. So, stay tuned for that. But the anime stuff is going to hit, but in a little bit of a different way.
Nice. Yeah, I saw the skateboard collaboration that you did. I thought
that was
was
something
dope too. With what looks like 3 planets on it. Yeah, that you following in the space that you were just talking about of painting different mediums. So yeah, I think
Yep.
dope.
Just doing new stuff.
Lastly, before we get out of here, where can people hit you up at? Where can they follow you? If they would like to order something from you, where do they go?
So you can follow me at all my socials, are pretty much all at Sierato. If you can't find it there, just type it into Google. All my stuff will pop. And if you were trying to, put an order in, like I said, I've got a text line. You can find that on my IG bio DM links. It'll take you to where you need to go to where you order. And then artisanechelon.com is my actual web store. That's where I sell all my physical artworks at, where I sell some other people's stuff and everything like that. So if you want some of my set designs, you like a Galaxy Air Max 90, or you want, this is one on there right now. If you like, stuff like this, this is a set design that you can get on the website. You type it in, you say, I want a size 12, and we send it right to your house. So, little stuff like that. So, head to the website, send me a DM if you want something, personalized for just you. If you want a one-on-one. Other than that, catch me on the videos.
All right, man. I appreciate you. Thank you for being on.
No problem, bro. Appreciate it. Catch you later.
Thank you for watching and listening to my podcast. We greatly appreciate it. If you made it this far, you are a real one, alright? We greatly appreciate you being here. Alright, like I always say, fear is fake, creating is problem solving. Peace. If you like this episode and you want to watch more like it, check out these episodes right over here. And don't forget to subscribe.
Whoa. Listen, it takes wisdom to grab these sneakers and spin them. Cut a couple of linen and match them up with the denim called Davidito. He'll cook it up like a kilo and have your Air Ones appropriate with the stilo. He's no Lilo, but he's mean with the stitch.